Hi, good evening. It's Dr. Asatar Bear. Before I start the class tonight, I just want to acknowledge that it's a very painful, difficult moment for people of Palestine right now. And I think we just need to acknowledge that that's going on, that the two sides in this conflict are not at all equal. Um, and, whenever one side has vastly more power than the other, then they are for what happens. Um, so again, I'm Asatar Bear, a teacher of meditation, professor of economics, and I teach this class every week. It's heart rhythm meditation, which is a method of meditation that comes out of Sufism, uh, and it focuses a lot on the breath and the heart. Right, so heart rhythm meditation. Um, so we start just to try it out. Right, we start by assuming a very upright posture. Right, um, so you can sit how you'd like. You can even stand. Right, there's a very adaptable type of practice. But what we'd like is for it to feel energetic. Right. Um, Meditation, you're being still. Right, you're being calm, and it's easy for your body, your physiology to interpret that as sleep now, you know, because when you're still and calm and you close your eyes, your body's thinking, I know what this means. Time to get some Z's, right? So we want to send a signal that says, no, no, even though we're being still and closing our eyes, this is a time to be energized, right? We just want to apply that energy to the inner journey, right? The inner work, to self development, to self understanding, self knowledge, all that, right? Um, so how do we send that signal, right? Well, we send that signal by having an energized posture. All right. So you're sitting in a chair like I am, um, and I'm sitting in a chair that's not even all that great for meditation. This is just like a regular office chair. You can kind of see it in the background here. Um, so what I do is this works for like my body type and whatever. So what might work for you might be a little bit different. A lot of times it's good to have a little pillow either to raise you up a little bit or to put it, kind of like on, your chair going vertically so it supports your buttocks from that direction. Okay. So basically you want to be able to be upright and ideally to not have your back be touching. I know it's kind of hard for you guys to see probably from this angle, but it's a little bit better, right? So from the front, it might look like my back's touching, but right. So that you can be upright, and that because if your back is touching, there's a tendency to kind of lean back. Oh my God, this chair goes so far back, right? You see, you see the problem, right? The more horizontal you get, the more your body is getting the signal. Oh, sleep time, right? And that's not the signal that we want to send, right? So a nice upright posture. Now we do want this posture to not be a strain. If it's a strain, well, first of all, it's going to wear you out, right, on some level. We would like meditation to be rejuvenating, not a strain. So we don't want to take a posture that is so difficult to maintain that it's causing you strain mentally or physically or both or whatever, right? So I've done lots of different meditation postures. Some of them are difficult. Some of them cause, my feet to fall asleep or whatever, right? I mean, and there's some benefit to that. But, anytime that happens, it's a strain, right? So be careful with that, right? So my theme for this class, this goes with dovetails with it, is intention. Okay. What are you here for? All right. And I mean that both every time you sit down and to practice meditation, it's a good idea to try to formulate that, try to get clear on that for yourself. Um, what am I here for? Because the clearer you can be about your intent, the more likely it is that you get some of what you came for, right? Um, is it guaranteed? Come on, right? There's not, nothing's ever guaranteed in life, but it's definitely more likely in my experience, right? A lot more likely. All right. So once you have your posture right, you want to just check and you know feel feel the center line of your body. Okay. So is that, are you leaning to one side or the other, right? Is that feeling vertical? um, are you leaning too far forward? This is a thing I do a lot, because I'm used to being in an active mode when I'm upright. So I'm like, okay, so a lot of times I'm reminding myself to just sit back, and I notice that there's less strain on my neck, my lower back, right? All of that. Because when you're forward, where it's going to be more strain, right? So if when you're going too far back, because you might feel some of that strain transfer to your abs, right? Um, so we want to be balanced, you know, don't tinker with it endlessly, but get um, you want to develop that body knowledge, right? That says this is when I'm upright and relaxed. All right. So then once we've got that, we tune into the breath and close your eyes. And we want to adopt a certain breathing pattern. We want to change our breath in certain ways. So the first thing is to make sure that we're breathing deeply. We're doing diaphragmatic breathing. So you can take your hand and just place it on your belly and feel your belly rising and falling. The belly is going to expand as you breathe in and contract as you breathe out. And by placing your hand on your belly, you're just feeling the process happen. You're making sure that there is movement that's occurring. And you're also directing energy wherever your hands go. Some of your attention goes, some of your energy goes. You're directing energy towards yourself, lower on yourself than a lot of times your energy is concentrated around your eyes, around your head, letting that energy sink down, being in our bodies, being with our breath. I'm hoping you feel the way that that can be soothing. Next, we'd like to intervene by making our breath slow. So, there's another refinement here, another little development. That is, slow down your breathing so that it takes longer to breathe out and then longer to breathe in. Try to keep your breath even if you can. Right? So, same length on the inhalation as the exhalation, same intensity. Okay, just observe, notice. Is there a part that feels uncomfortable? Is there a part that you're paying attention to for whatever reason that you're more aware of? Right? What part is it? Is it the inhalation? Well, what part of the inhalation? The beginning, the middle, the end? Right? Same with the exhalation. Notice what's going on. The breath is a very powerful tool of knowledge, right? Of where are you now? Because the pattern of your breath, the way that you're breathing, has meaning, right? It has a very deep meaning because your breath is a fundamental exchange of energy with the life around you. Deep, slow breathing. And you might notice that it slows down your rhythm. Right? Very helpful because a lot of times our rhythm is just way too rapid. Our thoughts are racing around, mm, you know, moving around like a pinball. bouncing from one thought to another, and then bouncing back into the track, right? It's moving around in a kind of circle or spiral. Now, your thoughts might continue to do that, right? So, but it's nice. It gives you a feeling of spaciousness, I think, or at least it gives me that feeling when that's slower. I feel more room in there. All right. We'd also like to make the breath rhythmic and heart centered. And we're going to use the same technique for both of those. Okay. So, how do we make it heart centered? Well, a good way is to focus on the physical heartbeat while you're breathing. Okay. This is a very strong sensation, right? When you get still in your body, it's natural for your heartbeat to come into your awareness. Okay. Now, that might not happen for everyone. Okay. Um, there's a substantial, proportion of people who cannot immediately or cannot easily feel their heartbeat. So if that's you, that's okay, right? We have to keep in mind that the heartbeat is not always a positive, right? Because feeling your heartbeat is sometimes associated with negative feelings, like when you get anxious, your heart starts pounding, right? You might associate feeling your heartbeat with feeling intense fear. Um, because sometimes that's what happens, right? That's your lived experience. So I acknowledge that that's there, right? Does that mean it's your destiny forever to have that? No, right? You want to form new associations, you can, um, but you might have that. It might be unconscious, right? Or maybe feeling your heartbeat is associated with very strong exertion, you know, exhausting, intense work, right? Maybe, or with conflict. Um, so those all might be negative associations that you carry with it. These might be reasons. If you don't feel it easily, that might be part of the reason why. Um, but one of the things that makes it easier to feel, if you do want to explore this method, place your hand, one hand, or even both hands on your heart, right here, right in the center of your chest. And you just breathe. See if you can feel that beating of your heart. You might have to adjust your posture a little bit, right? Depending on, like, my chair has arms, so I'm just figuring out how to put my elbows on these arms, but also have my good posture. Right? Now you count the beats of your heart, breathe in the same number of beats as you breathe out. Maybe it's 6 beats in, 6 beats out. Maybe it's 8. Maybe that's too long. Maybe you start with 4. We are uniting the breath and the heart. And we would like to add something to that as well. Add a feeling of sacredness, a feeling of worship, whatever that is for you, whatever it is that you consider to be sacred. Think of that feeling. Think of whatever touchstone you have, whatever gives you that feeling. Is it a certain place? Is it a certain person? Is it a certain thought? Is it the thought of God or one of the great masters, saints, or prophets in history? Breathe into that feeling. Deep, slow, rhythmic, heart centered breathing. All right. All right. So we'll end our little session there, and I'll talk a little bit, try to motivate this practice. Um, if you want to keep on practicing, of course, you feel free to do that while I'm talking. So um, the theme I thought of for tonight about intention, about what do you what are you looking for from meditation? What do you want from it? What do you need? Or even asking those questions more broadly. What is it that you want right now? What is it that you need right now? Um, Maybe those answers are clear to you, maybe not. Um, right. But if you're going to be doing an activity regularly, I think it's a fair question to ask of any activity, right? I mean, of any discipline that you do, anything that you do regularly is a discipline, right? Um, so it's fair to ask, like, what do I get from it? What is it? What need does it serve? How does it help me? Um, how does that fit in with what I'm going through overall, what I need overall, right? Um, fair questions to ask, right? But especially something that is really, you know, geared toward self development, self change. Uh, what do I want? What do I need? I had a poetry teacher once years ago who said that some of the most powerful poetry, right, begins with this "I want," right, or in some fashion, right, in some form. Um, when you say "I want," right, oh, I'm interested, right? uh, because your desires, your needs are that's a source of power. Uh, that motivates you, right? That it's good to know what these things are. All right. Now, I want to just mention, okay, there's a little bit of a philosophical, I don't know if the difference or whatever, but that comes out of Sufism where Sufism is like, look, we want to really respect and honor our desires. We don't want to have the idea that our desires are bad or are not spiritual or whatever, right? Um, we want to just start by knowing what they are, feeling them, right? Now, we might not choose to do exactly the thing that we first desire, right? There is a process of refinement, where we think about um, what is it that we want, what do we really want, right? Um, and you might refine that, right? It might not be the same as what you start with initially, um, like example, if you say, I really want to get so and so. Oh, I hate that person, right? I want them to suffer. That might not be such a good one to continue with, right? That might not be okay. You realize that about yourself. Okay, you're angry at somebody. Um, but is that a good thing to take on? Oh, let me ruin this person's life or whatever, right? Probably not, right? Why not? Well, it's probably not going to do what you want it to do, right? I mean, like, what do you want from that? Um, because most of the things that we care about ultimately relate to ourselves, right? Like you spend time and energy making somebody else unhappy. What's that going to give you? Right? Is that going to make you happy? Um, well, those who have spent a lot of time seeking revenge tell us no, it ultimately does not, right? So that's just an example, right? Uh, we we want to respect. There's a reason why we desire something, right? But that doesn't mean that exactly the thing that we desire is the thing that we end up doing, right? Um, but we want to respect that it's energy, right? So we don't say, "Oh, I'm desiring something bad." No, you're not supposed to desire anything, right? That is a certain path, right? That's a path of asceticism, right? That's a path of renunciation of, like monks and nuns and so on, right? Have traditionally done this, right? Given up their desires, given up the world. Um, that is not the path that most of us are on in the modern world, right? Um, so our meditation should help us, right, to be more human, right? And being human means you have desires. So, when you tune into your heart, you should come in contact with those desires, right? They should become more, you should become closer, right? More prominent. You should come in touch with them. Okay. Um, and I'll share with you a little bit about what that's been for me over the years, because it's an answer that changes. Like when you sit down, you might want or need something a little bit different from your practice today than you did yesterday, right? Um, but there might be some consistent theme that's going on, right? So like for me, definitely an early one that motivated me. I started get serious about meditation when I was a teenager. So when I was about 15, 16 years old, right around that time in my life, that's the time when I, sought out more formal instruction. I had grown up with meditation, so I had knew a little bit about it, but um, I think of it as the difference between, if you grow up, your parents are musicians or something like that, you'll probably have a pretty good ear for music, from hearing a lot of music, hearing it played. Um, but that's not enough to be good at music, right? You have to, if you want to be good at music, you have to actually practice. Um, and so that was the beginning of my, uh, formal practice or whatever. And one of the things that I really wanted at the time is that I wanted to have these experiences that I had heard about, that I had read about. That was a motivator for me. Like, wow, some incredible things can happen in meditation. I've heard some incredible stories. I've read these. I have this concept in my mind, but I know it's abstract. It's interesting, but it was like a little bit like reading a love story, but never having had experienced love, right? Like that. Um, so that was an early motivator for me, right? To explore my inner world and to find something extraordinary, right? Like a seeking treasure or something, right? um, and I'm glad to say that there were some extraordinary experiences that happened for me early on, and I was very blown away by them. So if that resonates with you, if that's something you're like, okay, like Dr. Barry talks a lot about is the incredible things that can happen. Um, I haven't talked about them too much on this class, but if previous classes, check them out. Um, what is that about, right? I want to experience that. So, the perfectly good reason, right? Uh, all of these are good reasons. It's just a matter of being clear, right, and knowing what it is for you, right? Um, Now, over time, things shifted for me, and then what became clearer to me is that I had a lot of wounds in my heart, you know, from my early life, from things that had happened. How do you know this? Well, they come up in meditation, right? They come up, and it's often very bewildering. Okay, um, like I don't know, I feel intense, like overwhelming amount of emotion. Now I have to say there's certain kinds of meditation that are more likely to produce this kind of response than others. Okay, if you're doing a style of meditation that is very transcendent, that is very there are styles of meditation that are like this, they're not really about your feelings. It's about something else, right? It's more about your soul than it is about your heart. You might not feel as much emotion. You might feel like you're rising above that, um, and that's a fine. That's a kind of experience. But I have to say, just for my own, I've done a lot of different kinds of stuff, right? Um, there's something very powerful that keys you into your feelings and your desires and your emotions and your wounds about doing this, right? just this physical act, right? Placing your hands on your heart. You you put yourself into an archetypal position, all right? Like like Jung, right? Like that kind of archetype, right? What does it mean when somebody does this? It means they're in a position where they are feeling something important, right? Where they are, maybe you're swearing allegiance to something, right? You're doing something that matters to you by just putting yourself in this posture, okay? By holding this and then by breathing into it, you're going to you're going to feel some emotion, right? Um, are you going to be overwhelmed instantly? Maybe not. I hope you don't feel totally overwhelmed. I mean, like, uh, I hope that you have the experience that's just right for you, right? Whether that's a lot of a feeling or a little, I don't know, right? And I'm laughing because it's kind of like it's a good attitude to take on that whatever happens is right for you, right? That there's a reason why you're having the experience that you're having at this moment. Um, that's what you need, right, for your development. So pleasant, unpleasant, less important, right? Is more like a statement of faith, really, right? That says the inner world is vast. There's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot for you to experience. Um, are you going to experience it all at the same time? No. It's like going on any trip. You see certain things at certain times, right? So, all right. So often what happens, you encounter these wounds, and then it gives you another pressing sort of thing, pressing need or desire, which is to heal, right? So now many people come to meditation with that very explicit need and desire, right? I'm aware I have wounds, I have, you know, difficulties, problems within myself, contradictions, tensions, right? And I want to try to resolve them at a new level, right? Maybe we'll always have some kind of contradiction. There are different parts of ourselves, but push and pull in different directions. Fine. But I want those contradictions to be, enter another phase, right? Right. Um, so that's a perfectly good one, right? I mean, I'm realizing that, I'll just share with you guys what is going on for me right now. I've been just realizing, I'm really struggling with depression, something that I never ever identified with ever, So, I think there was a part of myself that didn't recognize it or didn't want to identify with that, right? But then there came a moment where I was like, I think that's what this is. Um, and so, all right, that's helpful, right? Being um, being cognizant of something gives you the opportunity to focus on it in a way that you can't when you're not cognizant of that, right? So that can be another reason to meditate, right? Just to create more clarity, right? What is going on here? I want to understand myself, and what should I be focusing on, or what is the most important thing at this time, right? Uh, all right. So the practice has a way of bringing it up, whether you want that or not. Um, and so I'm suggesting it's a good idea to go with that. Like when when you're when you're boating on a river or something. It's easier to go downstream than it is to go upstream, right? It's you try to go with the flow of what's emerging, right? Of what you need. Um, if you go in a very different direction, it's going to be more difficult for you, right? Um, all right. So with all this in mind, let's try again, right? Let's try to add something to the practice to try to work on this theme. All right. So take your upright posture again. Close your eyes. Tune into your breath. Place your hand on your heart, one or both. Either way is fine. Make your breath deep, slow, rhythmic. Tune into your heartbeat. Same number of beats on the inhalation as on the exhalation. And you just take a certain intention. You say, with every breath and with every beat of my heart, I'm going deeper within myself. I'm feeling more deeply, more intensely that energy of my heart and manifests as desire. It's like a river, you're just diving into it, feeling the flow, feeling that feeling of just being in that flow. You're not trying to steer it, you're not trying to stop it. You are realizing that it's there and that it's you. The only thing you might do with this flow is try to enhance it. It's very common for us to have covered up, repressed, slowed down, stifled, dammed up, right? All of this, right? That flow. There's a lot of ways that we might come to fear that flow of feeling, of emotion. Use your breath to break through that fear. Now, the final element of the breath, as we've said, we want the breath to be deep. We want the breath to be slow. We want the breath to be heart centered. We want it to be rhythmic. The final element is making your breath full, which means breathing out much more than you normally do, and then breathing in much more than you normally do, so that the whole breathing, the action of your breathing begins in your belly. You expand your belly, but then you keep on expanding as you inhale all the way up to your collarbone. Okay, so that whole range of motion from the hip to the collarbone, you should feel movement happening within that whole range. All right. So the way that you start that is you breathe all the way out. All right. Breathe out much more than you normally do. Squeeze your abdominal muscles. Feel your belly moving toward your spine. You squeeze out all the breath. Then you create space. You expel that stale air. Then you create space to take a big inhalation. But do it under control. Right? Remember, we want to keep it slow. We want it to be subtle. The breath should not make a lot of noise. If it's making noise, try to refine it. I'm assuming that it's not because of congestion, like if it's because of mucus congestion, right? There's not much you can do about that in the moment, but if it's because of some restriction, try to ease that restriction, right? So sometimes we restrict our throat, uh, or we maybe we hold tension kind of in our face, right, and it narrows the nasal passages. So just try to notice that if you and try to open all of the channels of your breath. Just recognize that breathing all the way out, breathing fully, brings up fear. When you breathe all the way out, you are literally getting close to death as you can without any danger, right? Without any physical danger. Breath is life, right? To breathe out is medically, like the medical term for breathing out is expiration, right? It's the same as the term for dying, to expire. To inspire is to breathe in, to expire is to breathe out. So, we know, right? I mean, there's on some level, there is we are born and we will die, right? We're going to breathe our last breath at some point, right? Um, Physiologically and psychologically, breathing all the way out triggers some of that fear. Will there be anything left for me to breathe in? Right. So it has a lot of value then to it's going to push you. I'll admit that, right? But it's a kind of pushing that has a lot of value, right? You confront that fear. You learn something from it. You learn that it doesn't bind you. So, and then you also get an immediate reward, which is that by breathing out more, you're able to inspire more. You're able to breathe in more. And that gives a tremendous rush of energy. So, all right, we'll end our little session there. I don't know if you guys can see this, but just from having my hand on my chest, I've gotten a little bit of a like sweaty pattern there. I've got very sweaty hands. So that's if you're wondering what that is. Um, all right. So I want to talk a little bit here about, you know, again, there's a lot of benefit here to pushing yourself with the breath, to really developing optimal breathing, right? It's a skill. It's going to take time to learn. Um, that's part of why I teach this class every week to make that accessible to everybody. Um, but I recognize that some benefit from a more structured step by step process. If you're interested in that, I do have a course that I make available to all my patrons on Patreon. It takes you through step by step. It's got a video for each step, exercise for each step, and so on. So if you're interested in that, I put the link in the description to this. If you want to support my work, this is something I offer. Uh, and also, I want to say thank you so much to all my patrons. I really appreciate this support. Um, so, right, learning how to breathe is it's difficult, but in my experience, it really pays tremendous dividends uh, in terms of giving you the power, giving you the foundation, right, to experience whatever it is you experience in meditation. Because there's some wonderful, joyful, incredibly pleasurable experiences, inspiring, wonderful experiences, and there's also some very difficult experiences, right? Like life, meditation is not different from life. It's it's and also life. So, um, what gives you the strength to get through those difficult moments? Um, well, having the breath developed, having the breath optimal, um, gives you another, gives you some a very powerful tool to get through those difficulties. Uh, so now, if I return to this topic of healing, right? If that is a need that you have, right? If you have come in touch with a wound that you carry, um, and then your next question is like, how do I heal from that? Can meditation be a part of that? Um, I think the answer is absolutely right. Is it the only thing you should do? I'm not going to say that, right? I think you should do whatever it is that you find helpful. Whatever helps you to heal is, by definition, part of your journey. Maybe some of that is going to be things that don't involve anything that seem to be, like close to meditation, right? Maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's reaching out to other people. Maybe it's something like therapy, right? Maybe it's spending time outside. Whatever it is, right, is good. Um, I'm realizing just for my own like kind of psychology. I was because I grew up with this stuff because it's been a part of my life on some level for as long as I can remember. I somewhere along the line kind of absorbed the idea as like, well, I'm a meditation teacher, right? That means this is all I should ever need, all I should ever do, And I'm like, where did I get that idea? It's a, I would never say that to somebody else, but it's like I say it to myself, um, like it's odd, Sometimes I don't know, maybe that's my psychology, right? Holding myself to a standard that I would consider to be cruel to hold somebody else to, right? Um, um, or maybe that's, I don't know what, maybe that's a natural thing. Maybe other people do that too. I don't know. Um, the Hazrat Khan, who's the Sufi master that, I look to in my lineage, says it this way. He says, if you fight outside, externally, that leads to war, right? But if you fight internally, that leads to peace. So interesting perspective, right? Um, that we all have an inner struggle, right? We all have things to overcome, and I think that quote means it's good to have that, right? There's a reason why we have these struggles, right? It's good to engage in that. Um, you know, the Islamic term for that inner struggle, inner journey, is jihad. What a misunderstood term, right? Because that's been given this interpretation of like, oh, that means holy war. That's an external thing, right? Um, well, its original meaning is the inner struggle, right? So, how easy is it for things to kind of begin to have that interpretation or be interpreted externally, right? When they are meant to be the internal struggle. Uh, so, what I've personally seen is that therapy, for example, would be very good together with meditation, right? Because one of the things that you're doing in encountering your wounds and beginning to work with them, right? If that's something that's relevant for you, it's relevant to almost everybody, but is that your subconscious or unconscious is responding to very different signals. It's responding to very different forces than is your conscious mind, right? So trying to bring those two together, to get them more on the same page, right? To understand more what is the nature of your unconscious or your subconscious and have some support in that and to talk it over with somebody can be very helpful, right? Uh, but and if you're also doing meditation along with that, well, then you have the opportunity to really go into what you are talking about, what you're learning about yourself, right? So the two can work very well together, right? A kind of hand in glove, um, you know, kind of operation, right? Because you don't want to you don't want to talk about things and not see inner progress, right? Talking brings a certain amount of progress, yes. Um, but there's more. There's typically more that you need than just understanding. Understanding's great. It's a good first step, but a lot of times you need to then actualize it, right? You need to take steps, and of course, a good therapist will always encourage you to do that, right? Um, so one of the things I've done lots of both of these, right, for myself. Um, I'm a I'm a big believer in that. So I think is long and short of this, right? Is I think it's good to be open to a variety of things, right? Meditation has this kind of when you get good at it, right? It can become your touchstone, right? Your way of um, integrating all of your experiences into a coherent whole. Um, and that's important, right? Because we don't want to we don't want ourselves to be like fractured, and one piece is off here over here doing this, right? The other piece over here doing this, right? We want them to come together. Okay. Um, all right. So I want to address a question that I got, which talked about um, you know what are some of the dangers or difficulties. I had an interesting comment on Twitter about this, that meditation can have dangers. So just want to acknowledge that, right? Every kind of thing that you do that is powerful has both the potential to help and the potential to harm. There's just no way around that, like um, exercise. Exercise is very important, like we need that. Everybody needs that. Does it have the potential to hurt you and injure you? Yeah, it does, right? um, now different exercise they have different amounts of danger, right? Like I do judo. um, Judo is where you learn to throw somebody down and then grapple them. Like, does that have dangers associated with it? Yeah. Anytime somebody throws you down, there's a danger that you'll get hurt, right? um, I got hurt a couple of years ago. I fell on my shoulder and my AC joint got separated. I had this like bump up in it. Anyway, you don't need to hear about all my judo related injuries. The point is, right? things that are things that work. They also have dangers. Um, so we want to just know that about whatever it is that we're doing. Okay, so what is the risk? What is something that to be aware of about meditating, particularly on your heart? Well, it's going to bring up unresolved issues. It will absolutely do that. So whatever is in your heart, in your past, that's unresolved, that's painful, that's going to come up sooner or later. Will it come up and every time? Not necessarily, right? Because there's beautiful, wonderful things in your heart as well. Those things might come up. Those things might come to the fore at a particular moment, right? Um, so, but are there unresolved things? Are there painful things? Are there regrets, disappointments? Are there blame that we're holding towards others? Yeah, for most of us, yeah. Um, and that's going to come up, right? So we have to just recognize that. Now, another thing is that you might experience this. I don't know. Maybe you are, maybe not. Sometimes you feel a pain that's a physical sensation when you do this. All right. So, and this is just something to know that might happen, and that can be very disconcerting. That can be very scary. You're sitting there doing this, and then it's like, ow, something's hurting, right? Um, I feel it right here. Okay, it's not uncommon. So, I'm telling you this because if you want to get good at this kind of meditation or any kind of meditation, really, you have to practice it, right? So sometimes it can be helpful to know what kinds of things might happen, when you practice, right, for good or for ill. Okay. Um, Now, sometimes people experience a rising flow of energy where they feel energy is kind of prickling or tingling around here, right? Um, and so this is called Kundalini syndrome. Um, this is less likely to happen when you focus on your heart, when you breathe with your heart, because that sensation or that kind of experience, and sometimes it can be very disconcerting, or you can get spaced out or whatever. You're less likely to experience that when you focus on your heart, um, because when again, where your hands are energy, they're channels of energy, right? Energy flows through your hands. So where your hands are placed has an impact on how energy travels in your being, right? By putting them like this, you are the channel of energy that goes down your arm and out your hand is being directed back to your heart, right? Um, and that's a powerful antidote to that rising energy, that rising Kundalini energy. Okay, that can have its place. There's definitely kinds of meditation which use that, which focus on that energetic direction. Um, but like anything, right? Like I said, everything that's powerful can have its difficulties. So we're trading one kind of potential difficulty, right, of this energy feeling or this danger of being disassociated or spaced out, for we're trading that, that's a lot less likely to happen, um, for another difficulty, which is, well, what happens when you do this? Well, you focus on, again, your desires, your fears, anything that's unresolved. um, Now that's a downside perhaps, but it's also an opportunity, because the greatest growth comes out of just that, right? The growth doesn't come from the stuff that you're already good at, right? The growth doesn't come from staying in your comfort zone. It comes from dealing with the things that are unresolved, right? Um, so for me, I'll just say, like I say, one of my big needs at the moment, right? I feel depressed, um, and for me, this is attached to the great trauma of my adult life, which is, that I had dedicated my life to building a school of meditation with my father and stepmother, and I spent 5 years doing this. I was intending to do it forever, right, till I die. Um, and we just could not make it work. We parted ways, and it was enormously traumatic for me. And I felt like mm, I felt like tremendous betrayal, um, like by the universe, by God. Uh, just it was unbelievably difficult, and I felt like I never want to make these kind of mistakes. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I don't want to be inauthentic. You know, I think what came out of that experience for me was like the risk of that, right? And so I didn't teach meditation for a long time because I felt too wounded. Too the pain was too great. Um, I still practiced, but I went underground. My life went from being all about that to being very little about that, right? I returned to academic teaching, and so now I have started teaching again just at the beginning of this year, um, and this has brought up all kinds of stuff, right? Stuff that I thought had been resolved, and this is how it goes, right? You think you think you have worked on things, you think you have resolved things, but it's as often a spiraling around process, right? Where you circle around again to the issues, but maybe in a different way, on a different level, right? So um, anyway, I don't want that you all to think that I somehow have everything figured out. Not at all, right? I mean, I'm I meditate for reasons that I hope will be relatable. Like um, uh, I have needs and desires as well, like everybody does, right? Um, uh, and you guys are like, "Ha ha, we never thought you were perfect, Dr. Bear," right? If not, good. That's accurate, right? um, so, I mean, I'm trying to strike a balance here, right? This is not about me sharing my story, right? It's about me teaching meditation, right? So, whatever I share is designed to be helpful, and I hope it is. If not, forget about it, right? Don't worry, don't trouble yourself about it. Okay, well, let's try one final session, right? A meditation here. So, assume your nice upright posture. Tune into your heart. Place one or both hands on your heart as you like. You don't have to do this, but it's quite powerful. Once you tune into your heart, you might feel it. You're gonna feel the energy of it, whether your hands are there or not. But it's a very powerful way to energize your heart and your being. Breathe all the way out and all the way in. As you breathe in, feel your heart is receiving energy, vitality, inspiration, love, infinite amount of all these things from the universe, from God, from all that you consider to be the most sacred, from however you think of these things. Perhaps you don't think of it as God, but maybe you think of it as just energy. As you breathe in, your heart is receiving that tremendous flow of energy. As you breathe out, your heart is expressing, is giving, is radiating, is loving, is healing, is nurturing, is connecting, right? That's all of these are outward flows of energy. Breathing in and receiving, breathing out and expressing, giving. Keeping these flows balanced because that balance is important. That rhythm is important. We do not want to give in a way that is unbalanced relative to what we receive. That is a good way to get burned out. And we don't want what we receive to be unbalanced relative to what we give either, because then it doesn't lead to satisfaction. We want to develop ourselves. That happens by what we express, by what we communicate, by what we become. So the balance between giving and receiving is very, very important. So often we want to receive more. And it may be a paradox, but the breath teaches us best way to receive more is to give more. Breathe out more. Then you have room to receive more. All right. We'll end our meditation there. I'm here every week, so hope to see you again next week. Thanks so much for joining me this evening. It was lovely to sit with you. Namaste.